Hi, I'm Dawn Montefusco, life coach for writers and creatives, and this is the Ultimate Writers Series, how to break through resistance, ignite your muse, and honor your soul's calling. And today we have one of my favorite people, Devorah Spilman. Devorah has been a master storyteller for over 30 years. Today, she is also an intuitive coach and helps writers, creatives, and entrepreneurs to find the clarity and confidence to tell their deep, authentic story, to live their purpose, and transform their lives. Her in-story group takes people on a journey to find and manifest their soul's calling and bring their story, mission, and message out to the world. Devorah has clients all over the world following their calling, writing books, and building businesses based on the deep work that accesses their inner story and the power to integrate and use all parts of ourselves. Through her signature in-story process, Devorah takes women writers, creatives, and entrepreneurs within so you can access your authentic stories and bring them out into the world to make a difference and transform your business, your life, and your world. Woo! That's awesome. Hi, Devorah.
My God, so nice to be here.
So great to have you. This is such a great spot for you because I consider you one of the masters of getting people out of resistance. But before we go there, tell us what's new, what you're excited about, any new projects.
So yeah, I actually do have a really cool new project, actually two. One you'll get as a free gift, and the other one is I'm launching a whole new series called the In-Story Show. And what it's going to be a quarterly series as opposed to a once a year series. And it's an online, summit kind of like this. And the theme is to be able to tell your story and find your purpose. But what's really exciting for me is each one is going to have a very specific theme. So the first one launching in the summer is going to be focused on empaths and highly sensitive people. And what does it mean to be that? What's the new research on how highly sensitive people are 20% of the population, and how do you turn those sensitivities into your strengths, and then tell your story and see how that's so much a part of your purpose.
Wow. So, that sounds awesome, actually. I can't wait.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about it. And then each season, the In-Story Show will focus on something that is like imagination or being an introvert, or how do you take unique traits, skills, and abilities and turn them into your strengths and turn them into success. So that's
I love it.
Project.
That sounds fantastic. We don't follow our intuition enough, and we're going to jump in and talk about creative resistance, which I find is such an interesting topic because, creativity is sort of it should be a place where we give ourselves permission to do it wrong, to make mistakes, to have fun. And yet I feel that, many of my audience members, I deal with a lot of everybody over 40. There's a lot of women out there. And when they go to write, when they go to sit down and write, they freeze. They want to do it right the first time, or they start thinking about the future, or their critic gets in the way. But in your opinion, what do you think does actually create the most creative resistance, where we just don't give ourselves permission to be free?
Because there's a couple of things. First of all, resistance is a given. And so there are two sort of tacks on how you can think about this. So one is the whole concept of resistance is part of all creative endeavor. And I'm sure you've recommended Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, and he talks about this resistance really in his book. And I talk about it using the caterpillar butterfly metaphor, how the caterpillar makes its chrysalis, and then in that chrysalis, it turns to goo. Literally turns to goo. Nobody likes being in the goo, but it cannot become the butterfly unless it goes through that goo. And for us, that feeling of being in the goo, it's more like being in quicksand. And I always say there's only one thing you need to do when you're in the goo, and that's something. To do something. The only thing that doesn't work is to beat yourself up for being in the goo. Like, I'm so terrible. What's wrong with me? La, 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 la. Don't do that. If you're in the goo, I tell my clients, say, oh, I'm in the goo. What do I need to do? And that could be anything, calling someone, going for a run, a walk, sing, dance, call, talk. Anyway, we have tools. You need to use a tool. And then I realized, and I have a teaching on this that people can find on my website, but dawned on me, I'm Jewish, I love Jewish teachings, I love the Torah and biblical stories, and I went, oh, this is how God made the world. And right, because think about it. If you look right in the beginning of Genesis, it says, in the beginning, there was the heavens and the earth, and God created the heavens and the earth. That's vision. They're not made yet. And the very next thing that happens is the earth was chaos. It's the goo. It was chaos. And then, only then does God say, let there be light. So the fundamental creative process is always vision, chaos, manifestation, period, no matter what. If you're bringing any creative endeavor, vision, chaos, manifestation, and you'll see it's the caterpillar, the chrysalis, the butterfly. And Stephen Pressfield's book, he says any creative endeavor that anybody wishes to bring out in the world will always, no matter what, encounter resistance. So that's one thing. There's one other piece that's super important about this, and that is what I call beginning with content, not form. And what I mean by that is that it's just what you said, that if you try to edit before you write, you can't write. If you try to think, well, is my book going to be a chapter book, or is it going to be stories? Is it going to be long or short or big or small or la, 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 la? For many people, they can't start that way. Some brains can start with form and then fill in content, but there are many, many creative people who can't start that way. As soon as they focus too early on what I call form, it's like editing. It's like, that's so overwhelming or so confining that no creativity comes through.
Love it.
So what I find is, if you do the work, and we'll do a little sample of this, to go in and gain pure content, and you just receive that content, and maybe you don't know what order it's going to be in or what form, but you just receive that pure content and catch it, then you can go back and you can shape it into form. It's just, go the wrong direction, sometimes that is what makes you stuck.
No, I love this. I love this. You know, I do, in the creative, in the Create Your Dream Book group I have, we do start with like a mind mapping and an outline, but I always say that's very loose. You know, I'm like, this is very loose. This is just a container. And then write, and just keep writing, and don't worry about, you know, if it's good, if it's bad, you know, put parenthesis if you want to say research this or do that. And yet it's just amazing. You know, we still, I mean, I do it too, but I find that people will still say, and one of the quotes was, I don't understand what you mean by just write it wrong and make it messy. And I'm like, okay, wow. Like, have we really lost our way, which we have, that far from when we were kids and we couldn't do it wrong because it was creative. As adults, we don't know how to do it wrong and make it messy. But when they get past that, and like you said, they just allow the content to just come through them. I say, you know, you don't know what's on the other side, right? You don't know what's on the other side of the goo unless you just go through it.
Right. So there's two different important pieces of that. Like, if you're in the goo, you have to do something. You need a tool of some sort. You have to just do something. Maybe it's going for a run or a hike or meditating or singing or dancing or calling a friend or you have to do something to get out of the goo. If you're in the goo, one of the things that helps is, if you know the goo is the second step in all creative endeavor, then it's not bad that you're in it. It's a required step. There is literally no other way. So you go, oh, I'm in the goo. What do I need to do? And then there's no beating up, there's no judgment, there's none of that stuff. So, and then what do I mean by content and creative content? So then you also need some tools for how to access that. So I have mine, and we'll see what that is. And there are lots and lots of ways to get what I call get out of your try harder mind.
Oh, right.
A lot of times the reason people can't write is because they're trying to do it from this efforting mental thinking place. And from that place, you really don't know, what do you mean by messy writing, because I can't figure that out. And so the trick is, what are your tools for accessing content not from that place.
I love this. I love this. You are really great at guiding people into the subconscious mind, even to trusting. So that's another thing that you're really great at, which I do want to say. You somehow manage to give permission and to have, at least when I work with you, I feel that, okay, I'm going to trust the process, you know? And that's part of what you do in the in-story, I believe, is that you really give people a sense of safety to trust the process. And that, I think, is, again, something that if we know resistance is going to come up, if we know that we're going to be in the goo, then there's something we're just going to have to trust that it's going to be okay. And you've got some nifty tricks on that one.
So should we do one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so what I have done is I created a guided process that has 5 steps and has the acronym STATE. And we're going to use it to get an image, but you can use it to get stories as well. So when I work, just as a little explanation, like when I work with people who really are focused on their writing, some people are focused on a visionary business or project or art or something else. But when I work specifically with people where writing is the very first front work of theirs, always leads to something else. But I will lead them through this process, and each time I'll say, okay, go in and find a story. In fact, we'll do both. We'll get a story and an image, because then you'll get a taste. And then I say, now write that story. And they don't have to decide what to write. They get the story in a guided state, and then they just write it. And then if they want more time with that, they can go back and do the process again. And literally, you just write what you get. And so that takes you out of the trying to figure out what to write.
I love this. Oh my gosh, this is great. It's
okay. All right, so we'll do a little sample.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so everybody just go ahead and close your eyes and just begin to notice your breath coming in and out. And really allow yourself to feel that shift to stillness. And feel a sense of breathing bigger than your physical self. We are so much more than just our physical selves. And then allow your awareness to shift to that flow from above. Feel your connection to God, Source, the universe, and feel that pure light from above coming down to the top of your head, filling your whole body, your whole being with light, love, healing, blessing, guidance, clarity, down through your feet into the earth, grounding you in the earth. And then breathe up that solid, rooted, comforting energy of the earth into the center of your being. And be aware of being in that state of connected flow. This is the first step of the in-story guided process. It has the acronym STATE. And this is always the first step, which is stop and breathe. And this by itself is important to be able to do whenever you need to. It's a powerful shift. The next step is always think about it. So take a moment and staying in this state of connected flow. And this step can be used to think about anything. But for now, think about your vision, what you're grateful for, what you love to do, what's calling you forward. It could be what you want to write about, your mission. I want you to just take a moment and feel so grateful for your gifts, for who you are, just thinking about who you are, what you do in the world. And then the next 2 steps always go together, are ask and trust. And this is a key to this work, is we're going to ask, and then you're going to trust the first thing you get. So ask. We're going to gather a story. So we're going to ask, what is a story connected to who I am and what I do in the world from my childhood that's just right for this moment? And what I want you to do is just imagine that you're going to breathe yourself back, like riding a river of breath back as far as you can go into your childhood till you bump into a story. And you're just going to trust the first story you get. Don't worry if it's clear, not clear, just breathe yourself back into your childhood and just trust just the right story for this moment. Don't worry what it is, if it makes any sense. This is the key to accessing content from this realm, is you just trust what you get. I'm just going to take a moment to really connect to the story. So just notice, how old are you in this story? Notice, where are you? What's happening? Who's with you? How are you feeling? What do you want? Can you tell how the other people are feeling or what they want? What else can you notice? Look all around inside this story. And when you've seen all there is to see, give this story a name. This is the such and such story. Give it an identity, a name that that will hold the content of the whole story. So just give it a name. And once you give it a name, just imagine that you're going to put it like on the inner shelf of your consciousness. You're just going to put it to the side for a moment energetically. You're going to kind of notice your breath coming in and out, feeling that state of connected flow. We're going to do one more thing. And then staying in that state of connected flow, reconnecting to thinking about who you are, what you do in the world. And this time we're going to ask, what is an image or a metaphor for who I am and what I do in the world? And just trust the first thing that comes to you. What's an image or a metaphor that's just right for me in this moment, for whatever message I need? Just trust what you get. And you can allow it to unfold and become a little bit more detailed. It might grow or change. Just trust whatever's happening. And the last step is always explain, interpret, and then you explain, like, how is this image like me? How am I like this image? What does it seem to be about? Does it have a message? What does it mean? Just can trust what you get. If you're not sure, you can apply ask and trust again. Ask and trust what you get. And don't worry if you're not sure in the beginning how to use your images. We'll have a chance to share and give feedback to you about that. But try yourself first to just associate, what does it seem to be about? And then when you're ready, take a deep breath and begin to bring yourself back to this moment. And what I recommend that you do is that you just pause the video here and write down what you got. Just write it all down. And if you have questions, there's going to be a Facebook group for this summit, and we would love to know what's your image, what did you get, and we'll play a little of Dawn's Willing, and you can share either your story or your image or both, whatever you want to do. And what I just recommend everybody watching, that you write down what you got.
I love this. Oh, I hope everyone, if you didn't do it, stop, rewind, do it. Because that was, again, amazing. Devorah and I have done this for a few of these series. They're always a little different. And I'm a real fan of repetition and learning through practice. So this time, what was interesting is, now that Devorah, you and I have been working together, my trust level was higher, right? Because when you work with someone, that you really trust, then you get, you open up a little more. So what's funny is, first I'm like, whoa, I'm in my backyard, and I'm so happy that I'm in this beautiful spot of land and nature, that I'm walking in circles, and I just hear the birds and I see the ducks, and I see the birds and I hear the birds and I see the ducks. And I'm so happy, because that was something that I definitely missed when I was traveling. I went to Italy, and it was a great trip, but I got a little sick, and I realized I actually missed home, that I love where I'm at, that I sort of took it for granted. And then as the birds, I'm like, well, the birds are telling me something. They're like a school of fish almost, kind of coming in and doing this thing. And then you asked about a story and just trust. And it just popped. And it was my mom, the story, eventually the title, the placeholder was Mama's Cooking. And I realized that my mother, who's Polish, her parents grew up in Warsaw, Poland, Krakow actually. And my father's parents grew up in Naples, Italy. But my mother, to please my father, learned all the secret recipes of my Italian nana. And she was so superior at her cooking that my father's mother at family gatherings in front of my father's sisters would say things like, "Why can't you cook like Suzanne? Why can't you do this?" And it was like, my mom was like, no, 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 don't say that, because it definitely put a little bit of a barrier between my mother and my aunts, because she was the better cook and she was Polish. And then I realized that my mom was also very superior in the Polish cooking. But the fun part was, the image I had was of holding her hand and going into like my relative's house. And she would say to me, "Don't say anything about the food. It's not going to be as good as mommy's, but you can't say anything." And I was such a young child that, you know, kids, we were so truthful that the joke goes that every time I would take a bite of something and go, "It doesn't taste right." You know, and it was actually because I was young, people didn't get angry at me. But I had these moments where I was like, oh my gosh, I did that in so many different times and I'd forgotten. And my mom, you know, secretly, my mother sort of thought it was cool because she was obviously the superior chef. And she would have to, though, then soothe me and feed me something. So I wound up like eating whatever else was in the cabinets. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I went all the way to Italy, to Naples, to sort of go to my roots. And the truth was, and this is hilarious, we did not find, at least I did not find that many great restaurants, which Americans say, oh, the food in Italy is great. Not if you know what real Italian cooking is. We did eventually find a couple that I said, oh my gosh, my mother would be so proud. But I thought food was such a huge thing in my family. Mm-hmm. And I was a fat kid. I had to be an outpatient at one point because I ate 6 meals a day by accident in a double generation house. Then I had to lose the weight and I had to learn to cook in order to be accepted in my family. So my brain just kind of swarmed with that. And I thought, man, there's a story there, like a really good memoir essay that I never saw coming, you know? So I gave myself permission for that. And I wrote down Mama's Cooking and I already see it. I can already see the content. I'm like, wow, it was right under my nose. And another thing is, even though, yes, other people write about cooking and mothers and food, no one's going to write it the way I'm going to write it. And the vision I saw was very unique to me, which I thought, good for me for trusting that.
Right. And a big part of what happens when you go in and get a story like that is it will give you the confidence to enter into it. Just like you said, like you hadn't thought of going in that way.
Yes.
Now the story of the food will hold a whole bunch of other things that you want to say.
Yes. Oh gosh, totally. It's incredible about women and the I mean, I loved it. I loved being a woman that could cook, but there was also, it's pretty interestingly like misogynistic. I hate to say it because it was very intense in our family. Then though, you said to go to the message, ask and receive. And that's the one where I always get a little bit freaked out because something weird's going to happen and I don't ever want to say what it is. And then I do anyway. If anyone want to watch all the weird things that came out of my brain on the other series. But then this was different. I went back to all of a sudden, boom, I was back in the yard with all the birds. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, which bird? You know, I'm thinking, well, where's the message? I'm just asking, hey, and a hawk that came into the picture. And the hawk said, don't think of me as just a hawk. Mm-hmm. I'm your hawk for your home. Mm-hmm. And I like this, I'm home, like it was almost this message like, no, it's not the symbol of just the hawk. It's my home hawk who can see the world, right? Can check it out. Says, yeah, I have that vision. I can see a lot, but we don't have to go outside of home to have what we need. Like that was sort of this weird, like it was called the home hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's sort of this, like, I remember getting specifically this message that said, you don't need to search so far.
Mm-hmm.
You're right where you need to be. And I was like, whoa, like I've never thought of a hawk as a home hawk. I don't know. That was what came.
It's an intersection of two things that don't go together normally that are very profound. And one of the things I've also found when I lead this process for people who are hosting a big series, that the image that you get has resonance for your whole audience, which is what you just said about you are already where you're supposed to be. And that you can be where you are and have a big vision.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a really beautiful message for you, but also for all of you who are watching, is that sometimes we think we have to be somewhere else or other than we are or different in some way. And this is like a message to that from where you already are, whatever home is for you, you can have a big vision.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That totally gave me chills. Thank you so much. It's so powerful. And also I want to point out, it's really necessary to have a guide. We really take it for granted that we're supposed to do things alone.
Right.
But the power of doing it with the right guide and the right mentor is phenomenal. And you're fantastic at what you do in terms of really getting people out of resistance.
It does. And what I have seen now is this whole process of the in-story way that I've created, which is kind of a year journey of bringing your creative writing vision, mission and message out in the world. It goes through these 3 stages, which I love because I love alliteration, and it's shift, shape, and share.
Ooh.
But I figured that I was so happy because it's really the start. The shift is what we're starting to talk about. How do you shift out of resistance, out of your old story, out of that narrow paradigm that's holding you playing too small?
Mm-hmm.
And once you make that shift, it becomes what I call shape, which is kind of what we started to talk about. How do you shape? How do you receive this pure content like what we just did? And then how do you begin to shape that into something that can go out in the world? Then for share, one of the things that's unique is I feature my clients on my interview series. And so I give them an opportunity to be interviewed, to speak, to put your vision out in the world, because I have such a passion. I believe we have something to say. And I always say that the in-story way, there is no in-story way. It's finally doing it your way, honoring your own calling of your soul. And so it's really about like how when you tap into your soul story, it really does reveal to you your purpose.
Ah, I love that. That's just gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you so much. So beautiful. Beautifully said, beautifully done. Well, is there any last bits of inspiration before you tell us about your amazing free gift that you'd like to give the audience?
I think it's to trust that calling. Like if you have this feeling that you're being called to something more, to trust that. I think a lot of us are being asked to trust a way of being that we kind of couldn't focus on when we were younger. Like often our families in the world, we couldn't receive this sort of intuitive, empathic, highly sensitive, like that way of emanating and being, for many of us, was shut down. And there is a true opening now, especially with the advent of the internet where we can find each other. So if you are feeling that sense of being called to more and you're kind of stuck in the spin cycle, that's the time to, like what Dawn said, to do something that will help you shift out of that, and trust that calling of your soul. I think we're being called forward. I think there's a real thing happening.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. Tell us about your free gift, because it's awesome.
So I kind of have a new thing. Every so often I create a new thing. And so it's called Metaphor, Magic, and Mastery. And becoming able to really go deep and access very deep transformational images and metaphors can really shift you out of places that are constricted and stuck. It's really tapping into some new tools for how to make that shift. And so what I did was I created a series of short guided process videos that so it's like from the being like in the tangled forest to being on the clear path, or being from in the dark to in the light, or being trapped to free, or whole to broken. Each of them will lead you from a constricted state in inside a guided imagery to a state of more freedom and clarity. And so each of them, each one that you get is its own guided process.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
And then access, everyone will also, I'll gift everyone in your summit access to my soul story session, which is a free introductory session, because I try not to leave anyone hanging. Like if you got some image, you have no idea what it is, you have no idea what you're supposed to do, you're being called forward, you'll have a way to tap into that through a soul story session too.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Devorah. It's always a pleasure. You're doing such great work. And I love how you've trusted yourself to really develop these tools and to help others really just release and get out of the goo, which I love. So thank you. And I would love to have you back again.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see your audience in the Facebook.
Yeah, make sure you join the group and comment in the group. Devorah's in there. We'll have a good time with it. Please be active in there and reach out and say hello. It'd be awesome.
Share the image that you got from this process in the Facebook group, and we'll comment for, I'll help you figure it out.
Absolutely, absolutely. There'll be a thread with her picture, and then under that thread we'll have all the comments, and we'll have fun with it. So thank you again, and I hope you have a great day. It's beautiful outside.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.